All right, so welcome. This is another Trends You Can't Ignore episode. Got another awesome guest, Baer. I'm going to first by saying a good friend of mine. Hopefully he doesn't object to that. Inspirational plaid suit wearing Hall of Fame marketing and customer experience keynote speaker, MC, and trusted advisor to the world's most iconic brands. He's got 6 books under his belt, including Utility. And who can forget those of you that were at the summit a couple of years? He did great presentations on Talk Triggers, was just out at that time. So I know some of you certainly were in attendance at that. So Jay, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm pretty good, John. Thanks very much. Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking the time and spending a little bit of your precious minutes with Mr. Jantsch and myself. Thanks for the opportunity.
So let's talk tequila. You want to talk tequila?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you bet.
Jay has an impressive tequila collection, although it's shrinking, isn't it? Or is it growing?
It's growing, definitely. I've been making pilgrimages now to different stores and buying stuff online. So yes, the collection is growing. I've got a little bit of shelving problem I got to solve here pretty quickly.
My problem with collecting those kinds of things is I drink them, and then
I know
don't have them as a collector.
Yes, that is also a challenge for me. But here's what I've decided to do: just always buy 2 bottles. So you drink one over time, and you always have your sort of backup plan.
So have you made the pilgrimage to Jalisco?
Many times. Many times. Yeah. Have spent a lot of time down there with different distillers, and I'm actually thinking about, I'll just tell you guys now, post-pandemic, probably won't be this year because it's still pretty challenging in Jalisco as well as Oaxaca. But maybe next year, working on possibly doing an event down there called Tequila. So TECH, where it would be like a 4-day event, 2 days of tequila tasting, 2 days of content for smart folks like you. So I'll keep you in mind. Maybe we should work on it together, John.
I'd love it. But Jay, this is a group of marketers. You didn't really have to explain the joke.
It's true, but I just wanted to make sure, my mom's an English teacher, and that kind of specificity was drilled into me at a young age.
It was a typo. All right. So let's talk about trends. You cut your teeth, although you're very much in a lot of other areas these days, but you kind of cut your teeth like a lot of people coming up in social media. So let's throw out that. What are you seeing right now that are important enough for us to start paying attention to in as a trend? And I know trends are dodgy because they come and go. Sometimes they come slowly, but it feels like, of course, everything's been accelerated because of the last year.
Of course. Yeah, I would say a couple things, and I won't go to do any of the obvious pieces because this is a smart group. But a couple of things I've been thinking about. One is, I think this applies to all of the clients that you all serve. We're having this flattening of the comparison curve. It wasn't that long ago. I don't know the exact date because there really is no moment in time here, but I'm going to say 3 years, where people would literally say things like, you know what, that's a pretty good experience for a bank, or that's a pretty good experience for a hospital, or that's a pretty good experience for a ball bearing manufacturer or a lawyer. And nobody says that anymore. You don't get a pass based on what industry you're in. And the data point on this is really interesting. This came out not too terribly long ago from Yext. And they found that 73% of consumers say that an experience with one business impacts their expectations for all other businesses, not other businesses in the category, all other businesses. So your true competitive set, especially around customer experience, is not the people who sell whatever it is that you sell. It's literally everybody, right? It's literally Amazon and Uber and all these kind of things. And that was always going to be true. But because of the pandemic, the way that we gather goods and services, the way we interact with businesses has been flattened, right? There's less and less in-person, face-to-face, more and more digital. So the scope and scale of the experiences has been flattened. And so you literally are like, well, wait a second. A business like Cabbage, which is a financial services startup, They serve small businesses. They can literally deliver a small business loan in 7 minutes. My local bank, best they can do is 20 days. And they're pumped about that. They're like, we've pulled out all the stops and we're going to be able to get you a loan in 20 days, right? They're like excited about that. And that's no longer the competitive set. Their competitor is not the other banks in town. And this has huge implications for us all, I think more so on B2B, where people are like, I don't care that you're faster than somebody else in your weird industry. Are you as fast as Grubhub, right? Or are you as fast as Cabbage? And it just, that genie's not going back in the bottle. And I think we'll look back at this moment in time and say, this was the beginning of a trend where the idea of B2B versus B2C in the customer experience realm became totally unimportant and really an anachronism of a prior era.
And I think we've been seeing that for a number of years. It's like you said, a lot of times trends come on as, like having a site that load fast, having a click the call button. I mean, those were all kinds of things that everybody had to have now.
Yep.
But this really accelerated. Would you say that flattening of the curve has some generational tendencies to it? So like a 30-something is really not going to stand for it, whereas I might.
There is some evidence to suggest that customer experience expectations do differ by cohort. But in the same way that your comparison curve is flattening, I don't have data on this, it's just anecdotal, that demographically the expectations are also flattening, because somebody like my mom has become so much more digital since the pandemic because she never left the house, right? Like you were forced. I mean, think about how many people are good at Zoom now, or at least competent at Zoom, and all the ramifications of that, right? Like people who never would have bought anything off a mobile app are now doing it, right? And so that changes what they think is fast or slow or good or bad, or, how long should it take something to be shipped to their house via UPS, and, all those things. So yes, John, it does matter, but I think it's mattering less now than it did in the past.
Yeah, it's the old, this is the way I've always done it, kind of went out the door, didn't it?
That's right. That's right.
Does that present an opportunity to position yourself against your industry players who,
Yes.
So how do you suggest, like David Daigle put in the comments, I've heard from a local Alberta bank saying is everybody needs banking today, but nobody needs a bank.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I completely think it's an opportunity for everybody, because in every category, there is going to be one, maybe two businesses that really sort of take up this mantle and say, I'm doing this presentation for Cisco next week. And one of my key points was being faster than you were last year is not fast enough, right? Like self-improvement is not really the goal here. It's, are you as good as the best businesses in the world? And there will be one or more businesses in every category that raise to that level, who really do understand that customer experience is marketing now. And a lot of other businesses won't. So it's not even related to your size or your budget or anything else. It's just, do you understand how important this is? And can you marshal the resources to actually make it happen?
Yeah, if it relied on having the biggest budget, the federal government would be the most efficient company.
Would be, yeah, the postal service would be amazing. Yeah, that's exactly right. Can I give you another trend?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So here's the other thing I've been thinking about. I did 3 keynotes like back to back recently for very different industries that find themselves in a very different place. One was for the RV Dealers Association. Mm-hmm. And they had a record 2020, having a great 2021. Like anybody who ever wanted an RV, who could even spell RV, is like, I want an RV. Next talk was for the Marine Retailers Association. So all the boat dealers, same deal. You can't even buy a boat right now. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you have. There's no boats to be purchased, right? They're all sold out like for the year. Then I did a talk for the university, like college textbook stores, not having as good of a year because if nobody's on campus, nobody's coming to your store. They all had to like build their very first ever e-commerce site, like literally in 2020, which is mind-boggling. And so what this got me thinking about, John, is if you are in the RV or boat or slippers business or anything else that sort of found themselves as winners because of the pandemic, first thing you got to do is not rest on your laurels and think that you've actually accomplished anything, because all you've done is benefited by a twist of fate. And actually, just as an aside, what we've discovered is that it's actually a real problem, because these businesses have grown so fast that the baseline customer experience has actually gone down. And so you've got a lot of first-time RVers, first-time boaters who are having a terrible experience and are telling their friends, "Yeah, I bought my first boat and it sucked," and it's going to create some problems. But all the businesses and categories that they took people from are not just going to say, "Well, we lost all our customers because of the pandemic. That sucks." They're going to fight tooth and nail to get everybody back. And then the RV and boat folks are going to fight tooth and nail to keep what they've gained. And what we're going to end up with, John, is what I'm starting to call the marketing maelstrom. That we're going to have more marketing messages, more channels, more desperation, actually, than we have probably had, at least since the invention of the internet, and maybe since World War II. Because this is going to be an existential challenge for lots of businesses who are already teetering on a knife's edge about whether they're going to make it. And they're going to say, well, the way we're going to make it is to double down, triple down, quadruple down on marketing, because we don't have any other answers. And so the people on this call need to have an antidote for that, right? Need to say, all right, when your client calls and says, look, we're going to go out of business if we can't get 30% more customers, we want to try and do that with more marketing. What should we do? You're going to have an answer, because I think the sort of volume of marketing is going to reach unprecedented levels of crazy in the second half of this year.
Well, let me tie that to another thing I was going to ask you about. It's become very trendy in 2020 and now into 2021 to talk about marketing getting more human, which I think is just goofy as a concept, because like, what was it before? But I think as I listen to you describe that, I mean, we're probably in for less human, because typically volume goes up, humanness goes down.
That's right.
And yet, there's some really practical, I mean, talking about expectation, I think a lot of people got used to the fact that companies now were starting to be more transparent in their marketing. And again, another buzzword that gets misused, but by that basically meaning, hey, I saw companies saying, we're going to go out of business if we can't help you. I mean, that level of transparent. And I think people connected with that. And particularly since we, lost our human connections.
Right.
And so, how do you see that sinking with, is that a liability now if the volume's just going to go up?
I don't think it's a zero-sum game, right? I don't think it's either or. It's probably, at least it should be both. So I'm working on this new presentation, John. I haven't given it yet, so we'll road test it here. Love your comments in the chat, and I'm not kidding, because I literally I haven't even written this presentation, but I have written the abstract, and it goes like this. In this age of marketing maelstrom, where there's more and more marketing and more people trying to get into your pocket, consumers have all the power, right? We can skip ads, we can ignore, we can delete, we can leave. You can't force anybody to consume any marketing, really. So if you want to actually win hearts and minds, each consumer has 3 drawbridges, and they've got sort of 3 moats around their own hearts and minds. And to be successful with marketing, you have to get them to lower all three of those drawbridges. And those drawbridges are sort of the three M's, because they all start with the letter M, you see. The first is, it's got to be the right message, right? So you got to be saying the right things. Has to be resonant, relevant. Second, it's got to be the right messenger. And that's to your point, John, that marketing from real people tends to resonate more than marketing from the organization, right? That POV actually matters, I think, more now than it has in a long time, which is also why influence marketing is working better, why user-generated content is working better. People want to hear from humans more so than from the organization. And then the third drawbridge is modality. That and this is also part of this marketing maelstrom, that look, some people overtly want to read, and some people want to watch, and some people want to listen. And if you're creating marketing and content for your clients, you kind of got to cover all those bases, right? That you can't just be like, yep, we got a great blog. Yep, we got a podcast. You have to multimodal it, because people have sort of picked a horse and they want to ride that horse. So those are kind of the three drawbridges that I'm working on. And again, I haven't written the talk. That's about as much as I've got so far, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
So I dropped a link to Talk Triggers, Jay's last book.
Oh, thanks.
In the chat. And even if you own a copy, even if you own 2 copies, go buy one today to as a way to thank Jay for showing up here. He will make, what is it, 73 cents a copy if we do that?
Something like that. Something like that. Yep.
That would be awesome if you'd support him. It's funny, you talked about, companies doubling down, and, one of the industries that really has benefited are a lot of SaaS companies have very much benefited. And I just did an interview right before I got on here, with the head of content at Airtable.
Love Airtable. Big fans.
Loading as a company, and the head of content has hired 25 people on the marketing team in the last 6 months, and it's because of sort of the dynamic you're talking about. They're doubling down and tripling down.
Yep.
And that, how does somebody who doesn't even have a content department, let alone a team of that size, expect to compete, in the world of content being air?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is understanding that while the trend is toward volume, the success path isn't necessarily based on volume. Right. So more content does not mean more success. Ultimately, you have to create an emotion, right? There's only a few ways to make content work, right? You either need to be disproportionately useful, you need to be disproportionately resonant, sort of emotional, disproportionately humorous, right? If somebody isn't compelled to share or at least comment, you're just not stirring the pot enough. And so most content doesn't work, not because it's not nicely produced. It just doesn't actually matter, right? It's literally, it's not just air, it's noise. So you can really succeed without falling into this volume game, as long as you have the courage, and I use that word intentionally, as long as you have the courage to put yourself out there. Like you talked about, John, the people who said, look, we're going out of business unless we can help you. I suspect that wasn't a volume play, right? That was a we're going to say a thing, and we're going to mean this thing, and we're going to say this thing one time. And that's okay, as long as it actually resonates with people.
Well, and I think this idea of, especially if you can't compete with the big staffs and teams, it's really a call to be more direct. Instead of thinking, oh, we need 17 blog posts that kind of sort of hint around long tail searches. I mean, it's like, go find the people that need what we do and tell them, exactly how this is going to solve their problem.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I think part of it, and you talk about this in your amazing books and in this group, but we all can be better, I think, at times in focusing on what problems we solve more so than on what services we offer. Totally. We actually have a page on our site at convinceandconvert.com, and it's in the top navigation called 17 problems. And you click on it, it's like, these are the 17 problems that we solve. We literally list out 1 to 17. If you have one of these 17 problems, we can probably help you. If you don't have one of these 17 problems, we probably can't help you. And it's shockingly specific and overt, but it really helps, right? It's like, well, why don't we just tell them what we can do?
Well, it's interesting because, example for you guys on the call here, one of the problems we commonly hear is, why do my competitors are ranked above me in the 3-pack or something. Well, but, that's the problem that keeps him up at night.
Yeah.
And the fact that we can address that rather than saying we're awesome at SEO. It's like, well, how does that make me rank in the 3-pack? I don't get it. So
Right. Right. And even we would even look at it one step further and say, whether you rank or not is not actually your goal. Right. Your goal is making money, right? Which means more customers, which means more leads, which means more awareness, which means ranking, right? It's all, that's like, you're not in the business to rank, right? That's sort of a means to an end, not the end. And so I think people tend to conflate those a lot and think that signal is and noise are the same, right? It's like ranking is ultimately noise. It's not signal.
So those of you on the call, we're coming close to the end of Jay's kind of random and Jay's of my random conversation. So if you've got a question you want to ask Jay, start getting that fired up, maybe raising your hand. And Jay, when we were in the green room,
yes,
term for Zoom technology.
The snacks were amazing. Thank you.
We were in the green room. You were telling me about an ebook project that you're working on. And
yeah.
If you could kind of tee that up, and I'll.
Yeah. So I was, it's this kind of idea of customer experience and the fact that most people do customer experience all wrong because we tend to think of it holistically, like it's a thing, and then you can just kind of like adjust the dial of that thing. But the reality is customer experience isn't a thing. It's all the things, right? It's dozens or hundreds of decisions that you make in your business or help your clients make in their businesses. And so if somebody says, hey, you should have a better customer experience, like everybody's going to agree. Nobody ever says, Jay, you're wrong. I don't care about customers. I've been doing this for 30 years. Like nobody's ever disagreed, but they just nod and smile. It's like a campfire song. But ultimately, if you want to make your customer experience better, and you do, you have to stop, start, or change some very specific things. So I put together this little ebook with my friends at Podium about that principle, about the 3 things that all customers care about disproportionately, and how to actually do something about those things. And I'll just tease the 3 things. We did a bunch of research on this, that there's lots of things you could do, but the 3 things that customers really and truly care about is they want you to be quick, they want you to be clear, and they want you to be kind. Quick, clear, kind. And if you can focus on those 3 and put real meaningful steps into place to stop, start, or change what you're doing in those 3 categories, you'll actually have great outcomes. So it's like a 12, 14 page little mini book on that principle. I think you'll like it.
I dropped a link in there. What about like 2 out of 3, Jay? Does that work?
Well, you're not kind, so I'm going to give you quick and clear.
All right. So what questions do you have for Jay? I don't know if you remember how we do this. I don't know if anybody's got hands up, but you can just unmute yourself, uncamera mute yourself.
Uncamera yourself. Yep.
Uncamera yourself and ask Jay while we've got him here.